This week, we're going to discuss the subject of Abraham. But I feel like before we start into the scriptures, I just want to give you a little bit of background context. The question just naturally comes up, why would we care about Abraham? Why do we care about Abraham? Why does the Bible care about Abraham? From a historical sense, the main reason that we care about Abraham is because he is the father of the Hebrew nation, basically. But it's much more important than that. And of course, to the Israeli people, to the Jews, that's very, very important. But it's not that important to the rest of the world. Why is it important to us? Paul goes through in his writings, and as we have covered in several different subjects already, the thing about Abraham is that he is the beginning of the family of faith. And Paul explains that Abraham, through the things that happened with him, that he established for us, for Gentiles, for the Christian people, he has established how God can see us in the same light as the Jewish people, with the same contract and covenant. And of course, this is going to go against a ton of different people who don't have an understanding about that, which is part of the reason we're doing this Bible study, is that we are going through one day at a time, step by step, verse by verse, to understand how and why God deals with us the way that he does. In terms of our Christian heritage, Paul points to Abraham as the beginning of Christianity. So let's just get started here. Genesis chapter 12 is where it begins, the story of Abraham. God says to Abraham, "You're living in this place, Ur of the Chaldees. Your family and everybody that you know worships stars and the moon and all of that. But I want you to understand that I am the real God, the real creator of the world, and that all of these other people are worshiping things that are not as big or as good or as worthy as I am." And so he says to Abraham, "I want you to go someplace out of this country and out away from your family. Get out away from all of these people and go someplace, and I'm going to show you where I want you to go. And I'm going to set you up in that place. I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to prove to the whole world that I can take one guy out of a basically pagan nation, and I can send him, just point a finger on a map, and I'm going to send you there, and I am going to establish you as my representative and the people who can preserve the understanding and knowledge of who I am." And he says, "I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless the people that bless you, and I will curse the people that curse you, and in you will all families of the earth be blessed." What we can understand, having gone through some of these other scriptures already, what we can understand is that when God is talking about "in you will all the families of the earth be blessed," he's talking about Jesus coming, paying the penalty for Adam, and restoring mankind to a place of peace with God, as we have already discussed. And so, this is the beginning of that. Abram started out as he's just this guy. But when God asks him to go against all of the traditions of his people, of his family, of the world at that time, to pick up and just go somewhere, trusting that God's going to take care of you, that was completely unheard of. in that culture. I mean, it's still pretty much unheard of in our culture. But in his culture, if you don't stay with your family and do what your family does, you're taking your life in your hands. You are not going to prosper, because your family business and all of your family and the things that they do, that's how you live. That's how you make your money. That's how you survive. Skip down to verse 17. We talked in weeks past about how Abram went in there and he told him that Sarah was not his wife but his sister, which is basically true. But it wasn't true that she wasn't his wife. That part was true. And in verse 17, what you see here is the demonstration of what we talked about before, about how God took care of Abraham, and he also took care of the Pharaoh to a certain extent, because in verse 17, as you know the story, the Pharaoh had taken Sarah and tried to make her as part of his harem, and God said, you can't do that. This guy is with me. He's with me. And so since he's with me, he comes under my protection, and my protection says you are not allowed to take his wife, and you're not allowed to sleep with his wife, because that is... Let me just stop for 1 second here. This demonstrates that there is this law in our world, whether we recognize it or not, but there is this spiritual law. It's not like God just reached out and smacked a magic wand on Pharaoh. It is this law in God's universe, because he is justice. And what is just is you can't take another man's wife, because if you do, there is a consequence to be paid. This is really important. Go back in the story of Cain and Abel. What you see there, God says, the blood of your brother cries out of the dust to me, begging for revenge, begging for justice. This is another spiritual law. This is the thing that we understand as we go through the scriptures, is that there are laws. I know a lot of people have painted God as being this kind of a guy that if you do something wrong, he's going to smack you on the hand or smack you on the head or punish you. That's not really how things work. The way things work is that there are laws, and those laws, we find these clues through the scripture, that when you do something unjust, the forces of the universe, the power in the universe, the presence of God in the world, create a situation where those consequences come back on you, whether you like it or not. You can't run fast enough. In the case of Cain and Abel, what you see there is that the blood of Abel, the life of Abel, because of that murder, Cain was under a curse. It wasn't that God cursed Cain. It was that Cain cursed Cain. Do you understand what I mean? And so justice required blood to be shed for blood. That's the way it is in our world. That's how our world works. And so in this case, in the case of Cain and Abel, God put a mark onto Cain so that it said, this person, even though they committed murder, I have given them favor and I'm protecting them from that justice. I'll take care of that later. I'll deal with that. But Cain is part of the family of Adam, and so as a result, I have protected him from being cursed in retribution for Abel's blood. This is the same kind of a thing. God is saying to Pharaoh, he says, Pharaoh was plagued because of Sarah, or Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called to Abram and said, what have you done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she's my sister? And so then I took her, and what if I had slept with her? And so Pharaoh said, get your stuff, get your wife, and get out of here, because you're a pain in my neck. This is a spiritual law. And this is, I think, probably one of the most important things we can take away from this, is that in this world, there are consequences, and they will come on you whether you like it or not. And essentially, as we go, we're finding out all of these things, and I keep telling you these things, and I don't really necessarily give you the evidence yet when I say some of these things. Mostly I'm planting it into your subconscious. Hey, this is going to come up later. But Jesus' sacrifice on the cross stopped this curse that is on man that requires constant and severe consequences. It's the reason why over the last 2,000 years people have become more and more brazen and bold, because those consequences aren't as obvious as they used to be. Before Jesus, it used to be if you did certain things, the earth would just open up and you'd be falling into a giant hole like they did in the times of Moses. But because of Jesus and because of him paying the price for us, that has stopped that curse to some extent. And so now the consequences aren't nearly as obvious as they used to be. People talk about acts of God and plagues that come on people. Those kinds of things don't happen as much because of the mercy of God, because Jesus paid for that price. Okay, so we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to continue talking about the subject of Abraham. This is going to get deep. It always does. But while it gets deep, let me just say this. I have said to you many times, this is so simple. And it is. But it's so simple, it's complicated, because we have to unwind and untie a lot of this garbage that we've been taught and what we've believed about God being like Zeus and God being the vengeful Old Testament God, and we don't understand. I don't know what the number actually is, but to me, the overwhelming majority, 90%, or as I like to say, 99.9% of the people in church don't understand what Jesus did by his resurrection. And I think probably if you understand that, this Bible study is going to be pretty easy for you. If you don't understand that, this Bible study is going to be a little bit difficult for you, because you're going to have to unwind and untie a lot of that nonsense that you have been taught. And once you see it, all that's going to fall off, and there you will be, seeing that Jesus paid the price for the whole world, but the whole world is in the process of trying to drag that curse right back over the top of them. They don't want to be free. They want to be cursed. They want to be destroyed. Demons love destruction. And people who refuse or reject God's mercy, they want to be punished. They want to be in this state of chaos and destruction for whatever reason. I can't really explain that. I wish I could. I wish there was something that would explain to me why people do that. I don't really know. But I used to be like that. I used to be one of those people that, the things of God seemed so, who wants that? That's no fun at all. But once you see it in its correct light, I think something happens and the whole world changes. Anyway, all right, I'll come back tomorrow and talk to you tomorrow some more about Abraham. What goes up